These are 11 lessons I would like to share with Miami builders coming from 20 years experience of client feedback.
Picking the right land makes a big difference at the end.
Families and busy streets don't make good bedfellows. They will not buy a house on a busy street. And if they do, the drop-off is about 20%.
The cost right now in this market, it's between $800 and $900 per square foot. That's starting point for luxury homes.
There are big challenges that come with that. And I think if you're not prepared, you can get really burnt in the process.
So you have to look at the plumbing fixtures. This is a very expensive ticket item. You can spend $100,000, $150,000 on plumbing fixtures.
Their expectations are very, very high, and they're willing to pay for it. This is the Better Decisions podcast. I'm David Siddons. This is Dany Sebaaly. And we're going to dive in and get granular with what are the big lessons that we've learned after decades of being involved in the building process in the Miami market. So let's get into it. Dany, thank you once again for coming back to the Better Decisions podcast. This was something that I decided to write and produce this article about home building, because I feel that now more than ever, we're seeing more and more, not just builders, but I think individuals coming into Miami, finding that they want to settle here, deciding that they want to build a home from scratch, find the land, build the dream house, and there are big challenges that come with that. And I think if you're not prepared, you can get really burnt in the process. So I figured that doing this podcast with you, and you are a very experienced builder, doing this with you would really help share the lessons that we've learned, the mistakes that we've seen, big mistakes that we've seen over the last 2 decades, of what you need to do if you're going to be building. And I think it's good lessons out there for builders if you are in the process of trying to sell your properties and you're trying to find who to partner with and trying to decide what to build next. I think this is also going to be really useful. For those who don't know and those who do, I think you've obviously done previous podcasts with us, just share with the audience who you are and what you do, and then we'll start discussing.
Well, thank you for having me again. My name is Dany Sebaaly from Builcore. We are luxury builders. We build luxury single-family homes, and we also do full build-outs of luxury condos in Miami, as well as commercial projects as well. But today, I guess we're focusing on residential. So personally, I have over 25 years experience in construction since I graduated from college as civil engineer, and it's been a long and exciting journey.
And I got to say, it's been my pleasure to see that journey. I've seen a lot of the product that you've built. I know on a very personal note, you've just moved into your new home, which is located really close to where we are sitting right here today in my own home office. And I've seen the product and I've seen how you've built it. And to be clear, you are a luxury builder. I mean, what I see you typically do is certainly at the luxury level. So Dany, let's run through the points that we think are really important with building a home. And let's start with the first one, which is actually buying the land. What do you have to pay attention to when you're actually looking for land in the first place?
Well, the first thing, as you know, is about location.
Yeah.
All this rule in real estate, location, right? You want to be in the right location, especially when you're talking about a luxury home. You have to be in the right location, the right neighborhood, and you have to be surrounded with homes that are worth the value that you are be looking at, right? Multi-million-dollar homes.
Yep.
That's really the most important thing. The size of the land is very important. The larger the land, the better, because you have more options. How big of a house you can build. You can have a larger yard, larger pool, larger outdoor space. So the size of the land is very important. The location, I mean, if it's the lot is located on a busy street or not is also very important, especially for families.
Yeah.
You want to be on a quiet street, and it makes a big difference in terms of how much you can get for your house. If it's on quiet street versus a busy street. And then you're going to look at zoning, how much you can build on that lot. So you got to look at all these things to make the right determination if it's the right lot for you or not.
So what I've done over the years is I'm usually known as a very analytical kind of guy. And so what I've done in this process is I've tried to add some numbers into this process to help those who are trying to figure out what they should be looking at. What do I mean by that? I'm going to give you some working examples. Let's start, for example, with a neighborhood that we know like Pinecrest. Pinecrest, and talking about how much you can afford to build. Pinecrest has a ceiling in its market, which is about $1,500 a square foot at the very, very top end. And a lot of the newer product is selling around $1,350 a square foot or $1,300.
And that's net square footage we're talking.
That's
under air.
Yeah, exactly. That's working off your under air square footage. So if you're going to build a home and you are going to figure out what you're going to spend, land in Pinecrest is about $2.5 to $3 million for an acre. If you're then going to build a house and you're going to build let's say an 8,000 square foot house under air, and you're at $1,300 a square foot, you simply cannot afford to build a home that's going to cost you more than $10 million total. In fact, obviously you want to be a lot less than that, because the fact is that that market doesn't really have a ceiling much above that number.
Correct.
And the reason it doesn't have a ceiling above that number is because after that, you reach that number, you can translate or migrate into another neighborhood like Ponce Davis, where the dollar per square foot can go to like $1,800, $2,000.
Is much higher.
The ceiling's higher. So you have to factor in, okay, land is, people say, well, why does land in the Grove cost more than $200 a square foot? But in the Gables, I could buy it for $160 west of US 1. Or if I'm in Pinecrest, I might be able to buy it for over, around $100 a square foot. There's a reason to that, and it's to do with the zoning and the ceiling of the price. When I get into houses then within that neighborhood, being on a busy street, as you mentioned, families and busy streets don't make good bedfellows. If you have a busy street, families, and I'll tell you out there, anybody who's building, so a lot of families will just simply completely discount their house in the future. They will not buy a house on a busy street. And if they do, the drop-off is about 20%. That is massive. I mean, that would just kill your margins, I guess.
That's the difference can be the difference between making money and losing money.
Yeah.
Right? 9%.
So if you've got a house, two identical homes, let's say one of them is $6 million, and it's on a quiet street, and you've got maybe, let's say, a 4,000 square foot house and you're at $6 million. If you have a house like that and you build it on a busy street and you're trying to get $6 million and it's the same as the house on the quiet street, you won't get it.
You won't get it, 100%.
What you're going to end up getting is closer to $5 million.
Yep.
And there's no way around that fact. That is just the facts that those busy streets, people don't want them.
And it costs you the same money to build the same house on a busy street or a quiet street. So picking the right land makes a big difference at the end.
Sure.
Bottom line, because you're spending the same money on construction. Maybe you're paying a little bit more on the land.
Yeah.
Because it's on quiet street, but all the other costs after that are the same, right?
So when it gets into the conversation about construction, this is where sometimes I think buyers misunderstand what they're really getting into. The dollar per square foot. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen is people underestimate the dollar per square foot of construction. And maybe that's relevant now more than ever. What is dollar per square foot for custom homes now costing today?
Okay. First, we have to define which square footage we're talking about. As you know, you have the net square footage of the house, which is the area under air. You have the gross square footage, which is the total, including balconies, covered terraces, garages, etc. And you have the adjusted, which is a formula between both of them. So if we're talking about gross square footage, which is the total area, the cost right now in this market, it's between $800 and $900 per square foot. That's starting point for luxury homes. This is gross square footage. And depending on, what is the ratio between gross and net on a home, it can be, 1.2, 1.15, 1.3. The cost per net square foot can be about $1,100 or $1,200 a square foot. Again, this is starting point. We have built homes on the beach, on the water, where owners are spending more than $1,500 square foot. It can even go as high as $1,800 or $2,000 square foot. So that's why it's really tricky to say, oh, I'm going to spend this much per square foot. It's really hard to know exactly how much you're going to spend per square foot, because it's going to depend on so many things.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when you look at what the dollar per square foot ranges of what things are selling for in the market, case in point this year, we had a Venetian Island sale happen at $5,300 a square foot, which was a staggering number. At the same time,
you spend $2,000 square foot on construction, it's manageable.
It makes sense. I think it's justifiable to spend a certain amount of money on construction if the ceiling of that market is high enough to absorb that. I think where people get unstuck is that they start to miscalculate what the ceiling is, and then they start to then work backwards and say, I can't afford to spend that. If you want custom, you're saying $1,000 a square foot. Please, for those who maybe don't understand, what do you define as custom? What does a custom home be defined as in your mind?
I mean, custom home does not necessarily mean luxury home. A custom home is not basically...
Oh, sorry, maybe we should start that again. When we're talking about $1,000 a square foot, $1,100 a square foot, even as you said, when you're talking to waterfront, there might be $1,500 a square foot. What does a house like that look like? Like, what's the difference between that and something that might be in the same market, half that amount of dollar per square foot?
It's all about the details, the finishes. You can build the same home and spend, $600-700 square foot, the same home, same size, and spend $1,000 square foot or $1,100 square foot. So we're talking about luxury finishes. That's the most important thing. Luxury finishes, high-end appliances, equipment, fixtures. You can spend $200,000-300,000 just on light fixtures.
Yeah, let's run through what you might consider. What would be your top 5 luxury items that you would expect to see, that you have to see in a luxury home?
You need to have the marble floors, not porcelain.
Okay, so marble or natural
stone. You need high-end lighting fixtures.
Okay.
And this is a very expensive ticket item. We're talking about, you can spend $500 to $1,000.
We were having this conversation this morning.
Yes.
Yeah, I was looking up at your house, literally right opposite my house. I was looking at your lighting fixture, and you were telling me that your lighting fixture, one lighting fixture, was about $500.
$500.
What brand is that?
Modular.
So it's a modular, and it's beautiful.
Yes.
It's at $500.
$500. So, and we're not talking about pendant or chandelier or architectural lighting. We're talking about
your individual LED lights.
Recessed fixture.
Yeah.
And you need many of those.
And how many do you typically, in your house you have?
We have about, I would say, 80 or 90 fixtures like that.
So let's say a round figure, if you've got, let's say you've got 100. Let's say you've got 100 fixtures on the house. That's $50,000 right there.
Just on recessed in ceiling fixtures.
And
do not start talking about, pendants.
Yeah.
Which can go, up to $20,000-30,000.
That's a different animal. Okay, so stone, the lighting fixtures. What are the other 3 things that you would use?
To have the right air conditioning. You can spend double on heating and air conditioning if you pick the right equipment, the right controls. Luxury homes, you don't want to have noisy AC units.
Yeah, and you don't want to have the whirring sound.
You want everything to be quiet. You want the ceiling diffusers. They have to be, frameless.
Yeah.
Frameless, slots everywhere. You have to have the inline exhaust fans in ceilings. And for those who don't know what inline exhaust fans are, typically you go to the bathroom and you see this square, noisy fan in the ceiling, right? You turn it on like
the original ugly square
right.
Evan.
So the inline is you only see a slot like an AC diffuser, and then the motor is not there. It's in the ceiling somewhere remote. So you turn it on, you don't hear it. You don't hear the noise in the bathroom. So you need to look at all these things in a luxury home. You need to have, high-end impact windows. You need to have, the pool. It has to be fully tiled. You cannot have diamond bright.
I'm glad you mentioned that point, because that was to me like a big giveaway. A lot of the houses that we've seen that are being sold as luxury, and I think this also helps when those people are out there buying a luxury home and they're coming with me out there onto the market and they're looking at, houses that might be, let's say some of the most expensive houses in that market. I'm not going to give a number, but let's say the most expensive house in the market. I've often remarked that I've walked into a property and they've been like, oh, this is a luxury home. And I thought in my own head, well, not in my book, it's not. Because I'm so used to seeing your product. Right. If I don't see a fully tiled pool, in my mind, that's not ultra luxury. That's just like a decent home that I would expect you to pay, what I call new home prices, but not new luxury home prices, because there's a big defining difference between a new home price. For example, in this neighborhood, a new home price or in the Grove might be $1,300 a square foot, but a new home luxury that you might find in a very specific quadrant of that market. So moving from the Gables dry lot that I might pay $1,400 a square foot to going into Gables Estates or Old Cutler Bay or Journey's End or Snapper Creek, and then I see something at over $2,000 a square foot, I want to see a fully tiled pool. You have it, I have it, and it looks so different.
Absolutely, 100%. And what kind of tile? You cannot have these, those, typical blue mosaic tiles. And the other thing also you have to look at is the plumbing fixtures.
Yeah.
And again, this is a very expensive ticket item. You can spend $150,000 on plumbing fixtures for a luxury home. It can go much higher than that depending on the house, the size of the house. But you need to spend money on nice plumbing fixtures, nice faucets in the bathrooms, integrated sinks. You need to install, the washlet toilets.
These are my go-to things that I've observed in custom homes. And again, Builcore has worked very closely with Design Solutions, my wife's company, and I've seen you guys work hand in hand for well over a decade. She would always...
Wonderful partnership.
It's incredible. But the products you produce is a testament to that, because it just doesn't look like anything else. And again, the amount of properties that I've seen Builcore work in conjunction with Design Solutions that then get resold down the line hit $1 per square foot that I've never seen before. We've seen it in condos. We saw it in Park Grove. Park Grove's record $1 per square foot right now stands at $3,600 a square foot. It's a unit that Design Solutions did with Builcore. 87 Park, we have another one. It's a perfect example. These are condos.
So in the same condo, you sold it to the owner who renovated it, and then you sold it
again. Yeah.
Trade again, and you saw the difference.
I would say 100%. We're talking more than 100% uptick in value. I've noticed that with your product, and again, coming back to what I'm identifying as luxury, Lou would always tell me, look at the hinges on doors. This is going back a long time. This is when SOS hinges were really in. And I would be like...
Concealed hinges.
Yeah, the concealed hinges. Yes, exactly. Just to be clear, these hinges on the doors, and the doors, the weight of these doors that they were holding was much heavier than your standard door. So if you didn't have the right hinge, the door would sag, and it would then end up not fitting properly. But when it's being hung correctly, these doors are heavy, they're soundproofed, they're very insulated, they're cased well, and you feel there's this it's like when you close the luxury car door, you get the same clunk. It has that same feel to it. That was something I've always observed. And then the other thing that I've often noticed is that I do not see exposed drywall in your product. I see wallpaper. I see lime wash that you've done on your house, which is done in Venetian, sitting, and just an unbelievable amount of paneling. I mean, the woodwork that I've seen in your product and Design Solutions, Builcore's product, is just a different level.
You have to have a lot of millwork. I mean, depends on each client has, his own taste. Some people don't like too much wood, but you need to have some wood, at least some wood paneling. You need to have high-end appliances. You have to have the Sub-Zero Wolf or the Miele. That's very important.
The thing that I've seen a lot of what I would call mid-level luxury houses out there in the market with Miele and Sub-Zero and Wolf. What I don't see with a lot of those houses is how they look when you walk from the outside and walk inside. So one of the things that I wrote was what is out, and what's out is very boxy, and we'll get into the architecture in a second, but very boxy and very cold, like white glass floors, like lots of shiny stuff, like shiny everywhere, which is a denotion of generally like low, I won't say high grade porcelain, but very low grade porcelain. And then I see from the outside what is just a stuccoed box.
Correct.
Like a very, very standard
square stucco box.
Yeah.
But, this was the Miami market, though. If you go back 20 years ago, 20, 25, 30 years ago, this is what was popular in Miami, right? Everything was square. And
I don't know. I feel like even 10 years ago, Dany, 10 years ago, I would see a lot of stuff. I'm not picking on Pinecrest, but it is what it is. I would go into a lot of these houses that were brand new from less than 10 years ago. Even I want to say sometimes they were built during the pandemic. I saw a lot of this stuff. It was a white box with a lot of porcelain, a lot of cheap finishes, very shiny.
All white furniture.
White furniture.
White leather couches.
And then on the outside, it was a white box too. It was just a white box stucco.
Right.
What I've noticed with your particular work with Design Solutions is it's warm.
Yes.
Like you use a lot of stone and a lot of natural woods. And I don't mean on the inside because you do that there. I'm talking on the outside of the house.
Outside and inside, yes.
So when people are looking on these homes and they see them and they go, wow, that's so luxury. What is it that in your mind is triggering that the builders need to stop doing and start, or even the people who are building for themselves, what they need to invest on the outside of the property? Like where does it warrant investing and what should they be spending money on?
They need to introduce some stone to the exterior. The stucco does not do it anymore. You need to have some stone. I'm not talking about the entire house. You don't need to clad the entire home with stone, but you need to have some accent walls, especially in the front. That's extremely important. You need to spend money on landscaping, variation, not just, one type of hedges around the property.
Yeah.
That's not going to cut it. You need to have the right landscaping. You need to have the right landscape lighting.
Right.
And you need to have decking around the pool. You need to have the, the kumaru or the ipe wood decking around the pool. You need to have all these things for the exterior to bring some warmth to the exterior of the house.
Laying grass, having a pool, laying grass around it, and sticking a clucher hedge does not quantify as landscaping.
Terrible. Yes. It's very commercial.
What should someone, let's say someone's got a 20,000 square foot lot. What would be a suitable budget for landscaping for a home? Let's say you're going to do a luxury home and it's a dry lot home. How much should you spend on landscaping?
300,000.
300,000?
Yes.
That's a significant amount of money.
Yes.
And that's probably higher than I think a lot of people probably thought. They probably thought, well, I can get away with, 50, 75, 100,000.
Get you back good return.
Yeah.
Trust me.
I agree with you 100%. I've actually said this to people when we sold a house in Coral Gables, and the builder, who was an individual, he wasn't a builder originally, but he said, I'm going to build this house. We introduced him to the architect. We introduced him to the GC. He built the house. And then when we went over, he said, this is what I want for the house. And just to be clear, fast forward, we did sell it at a record $1 per square foot. It broke the record in the market. But as we walked through the house at the time, I looked outside and I saw, guess what? A clucher hedge and some grass. And we looked at him and we said, this is not going to cut it, my friend. We cannot sell this house for this record $1,400 a square foot, which is what we got. if we're going to have a acacia hedge and some grass, we need to have some advanced landscaping. It was amazing to see once we got him down and we said, look, let's spend some money. And I think we probably ended up spending extra 30 or 40,000 with palms and low-level shrubs. Not a lot, but it really transformed that property. I think if that property, and again, it was a 18,000 square foot lot. I think if that house was going into an ultra luxury environment, let's say it was in a gated community, it was in a Hammock Lakes, or it was in a Ponce Davis, he would have spent a lot more. We spent about 300,000 here as well. And actually we're still spending money now because, again, landscaping needs refreshing and needs looking after. But the impact is just humongous. Yeah, humongous. So I think that good landscaping matters. I wanted to get into the architecture because I think one of the things that gets misunderstood is I kind of have a vision of how I want my custom home to look. But why is an architect so important for the less obvious reasons?
I agree with you. Architects are a good architect is expensive for a reason. They know what they're doing. They have nice designs and they've done many houses in the past. They know all the tricks. People think that architecture is just the shape of the house and how many bedrooms.
They think of the silhouette. That's all.
But if you look at architectural plans when you design a house and you get a stack of drawings from the architect, like 200 sheets of drawings with all these details, how to put this house together. If these drawings were not done right, there's so many things that can go wrong because contractors follow plans, right? You give them this set of plans and they just follow the plans. What you see at the surface is one thing, but what's inside the walls, how things are being put together, that's another thing. And that's what the architect does. So yes, design is extremely important, having a nice, beautiful design, unique. But also how to put this house together is extremely important because at the end, you don't want problems. You want to finish your home, you want to move in, and you want everything to work and to flow. And this is all done by the architect and his team, not just the architect. Of course, the MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, they all work as a team to put all these specifications together for a home. And it has to be done right. That's the first step after buying a land that many people, many home builders or homeowners who are build their homes, make the mistake. They go cheap on the design team.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to spend $300,000-$400,000 on a design team. I can do it for $100,000.
So we've kind of had a discussion about the ideal square footage in a house. And when I get into custom homes, custom luxury homes, I have a personal feeling about what is the ideal square footage. I want to know from you, what is, in your opinion, if you're going to build a house, you're going to build your dream home, what is the ideal square footage? What would you say is the perfect number? And how do you break that up by how many bedrooms and bathrooms and so forth and so forth would you have in there?
I think 7 to 8,000 square feet is the ideal. And this is why. I mean, what do you want to have in your home, right? Let's start from the number of bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a good size master bedroom.
Yes.
Right? Comfortable size closet, good size master bathroom, double showers, 2 toilets, 2 vanities. You need all that in a luxury home. And in addition to the master bedroom, you need to have at least another 4 or 5 bedrooms.
Okay.
That's it. On top of that, you need a gym.
Okay.
You need an office.
Yep.
You need, I think it's better to have a butler kitchen.
Okay.
A prep kitchen or butler kitchen. A 2-car garage. And a good amount of outdoor space.
What's the ideal amount of covered terrace in your thoughts?
I mean, on a 7,000 square foot home, I would say you need at least 1,500 to 2,000 square feet of covered terrace.
Okay, which makes sense. I mean, again, this is more of an architect's question than a builder's question. But I'm reflecting on your home, reflecting on mine, and I'm thinking where we spend our time when we're barbecuing and entertaining. It's important to have a lot of covered terrace.
We live in Miami. You can spend $12 months of the year outdoors, right?
Yeah.
And since it rains a lot, you need a covered area. So this is why covered terraces are extremely important.
It sounds so obvious, but I will say this. I've seen a ridiculous number of houses over the years being built in neighborhoods where they're getting what I would call the top end of their normal luxury market. Normal is not really a term, but they're certainly at the top end of their new dry lot new home prices. They're somewhere between $1,300 and $1,500 a square foot. Pinecrest, Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, High Pines. And the one thing that I've seen a lot of, again, the kiss of death, is not enough covered terrace.
Yep.
And it blows my mind that anyone would build a house and have not enough space to be able to have a proper outside dining experience with a barbecue, enough for a
without worrying that it's going to rain. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And that you're not going to get wet. And enough to have an outside dining table where you can sit, let's say, at least 10 people, probably more, because again, entertaining is more people than that. And then on top of that, an outside seating area, kind of like an outside living room area. If you don't do that, to my mind, you've just completely eliminated yourself from, I want to say, 75% of the buying pool will completely eliminate that choice of house.
I completely
and then when I think about the bedroom, I agree with you. The bedroom count, if I get into this, I think the ideal number is actually 7,500, which is right between what you were saying. And I work it for one bedroom per 1,000 square feet. And so whether it's an office or whether it's a home gym, it's a room. And I know gyms can be worked into bedrooms and offices can also be worked and used as bedrooms. But I figure that if you've got 7,500 square feet, you really should be having 6 bedrooms plus an office plus a home gym. I think that's the perfect amount. What I will say is this. How you distribute those bedrooms really matters. There's a number of really beautiful houses that I've been to in gated communities, and they've had 3 bedrooms on them on the upstairs level. And we haven't been able to sell a house. Buyers will not, if they've got, to me, a home is most frequently bought by a family.
Correct.
Okay. If it's not a family and they have the money, they're probably going to be buying a condo because their kids are grown up. They don't need the space. They don't need the yard. They don't need the maintenance. They'll go back into a condo. But those who are buying big homes will have kids, whether they're young kids or kids in middle school or they're older kids. They've still got a family, an extended family. And I think that when you have 3 bedrooms on an upper level, families will say, well, I don't want that. I want everybody to be on the same level.
So they have 3 bedrooms upper level and the rest on the first level.
That's a killer. Right. I think that on the upper level, like you have in your house, you have your upstairs. I think the perfect combination is what you have. You have an office downstairs. You have
with a private entrance.
You have a maid's quarters downstairs, which is a bedroom, has a bathroom, has a closet. You'll have, if you're lucky enough and you want to go that big, you might be lucky enough to have a guest quarters, a guest suite downstairs. Sometimes it's a junior master, sometimes it's not. But upstairs is where the majority of your bedrooms are.
Correct.
Your master, then an additional 3 or 4 bedrooms.
4 bedrooms.
And it might be a home gym. Sometimes your home gym might be in the garage. Sometimes people put that down. You did yours actually in one of the rooms. It's gorgeous. You've got a sauna, you've got a cold plunge, you've got the whole thing going on. But if it's not there, then it might be down in the garage.
But you need the garage as well. I mean, if you're paying so much money for a house, you need the gym and you need also the garage.
Oh,
you want to have the ability to park your cars inside the garage, right?
No, I agree. That's why I think if you're going to have a garage and a home gym, you have to have a 3-car garage or a 4-car garage. You can't have a 2-car garage and put the gym in there. It doesn't work. Right. Especially if you've got that kind of money and you're spending that much on a house, you've got nice cars. Right. And it goes without saying. From start to finish, from the time that you close on the land to the time that actually you either move into the house or sell the house, you're talking about a 3-year process.
Yes.
Is that about right?
It can be more, but yes.
Okay. So one of the things that I have a conversation with builders about, and I look at it, and this is the economist in me now talking, is people saying, right, how profitable is it to build a luxury custom home? Because 3 years is a long time. And at this level, a lot of people say, you know, time is my greatest asset and it's important. And I'm weighing up whether I should just go for a finished house or whether I should, you know, build my own home. And I'm talking to those of you out there who are thinking about doing this yourselves rather than just going out there and buying a house. I see it a lot with people at a certain point and a certain income level where it doesn't really necessarily make sense to necessarily build a house. But there is some significant upside to this. And generally the builders want to make about 33% profit when they're buying and then buying the land, building the house, and then eventually selling it.
It's somewhat right, yes.
One of the biggest mistakes that we see is, and I call it like the market moves. So if we look, and this is probably useful to track up on the screen, let me show you what's happened to the housing market over the last 25 years. The market moves up, there's a leveling off, it moves up again, it levels off, it moves up again. But typically,
no downward.
Certain markets, if you look, there's no downward trajectory. There's no actual correction. In certain markets, there's a flattening off. This is very different to the condo market. The condo market does oscillate because there's a massive introduction of new product very often.
So 25 years, you're going back to 2000. Does that mean in 2008 crash, the single family luxury market did not go down?
Well, here's the thing. In some markets it did, in some markets it didn't. And I think what's important to recognize is that if you look at the expansion of the 25 years, just like the stock market, there's always a little bit of a hiccup. But what's really interesting is that when we saw, even during COVID, we had a kind of a flattening off, and then obviously it spiked really fast. But look at the injection points of interest rates on this graph. If you look at the injection points of an interest rate, when an interest rate drops each time in the single family market, look at what happens to the housing market.
It shoots up.
It spikes by about 8 to 10%. Each and every time it spikes 8 to 10% at least. And my thoughts right now, as we sit in September and we're expecting a drop of interest rates, I think if I was to give a prediction of what the housing market's going to look like in the next 3 years, I think that whatever you're paying today, I think it's fair to say you're going to be paying a lot more in 3 years from now.
I think so. I agree.
Land is the one thing they're not building any more of. And so when we look at this and someone's saying, all right, so if I'm going to pay $3 million for this parcel of land and it's going to cost me $6 million to build. But today that house might be worth maybe 11 or 12. That might be in their mind only a 20% jump. And they're thinking, well, that seems like a lot of work for not as much margin spread as I thought I would get. And then I remind them, well, that's off today's numbers.
Yeah.
That $11 million in 3 years from now could very well look like a 20% jump, which is going to take you from 11 to more like 13.
Yeah.
And now your spread's a $4 million spread.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is what home builders usually do. They base their projections based on current numbers. Because yes, prices might go up. There's very high probability they will go up in the future, the next 2-3 years, but that's not, nobody knows, right? Nobody can predict the future.
Yeah.
So they base their numbers based on today's market, not on what the market, could be in a few years.
I think that one of the things that insulates building in the right area from, let's say, you mentioned the 2008 crash and said, well, what happened to the market there? Did the prices go off? Yeah, they did. But if I showed you certain quadrants of the market, gated communities in certain areas, they didn't drop, they stabilized.
Wow.
And what's fascinating about it is that if I take you into Gables Estates or Old Cutler Bay or Journey's End or Snapper Creek or Ponce Davis, if I take you to other parts of Miami Beach, Venetian Islands, you're talking about a very finite supply of real estate.
Correct.
And what occurs with those markets is that there's enough buyers to keep that market going. And there's more buyers coming at that certain level that will absolutely allow for that market to increase. Because when you've only got a few options, it's not like the condo market. I mean, they build a new building and of course, inventory goes up. You can build a luxury condo and you can build 80, 90, 100, 200 units. if you take point lots in Gables Estates or Cutler Bay, there's no more of them.
100%.
So
Yeah.
there are some undervalued quadrants of the market, and I'm curious to know what areas you look at, and we can give you my thoughts too. What areas I think are really undervalued right now in the markets where I think there's good opportunity for building.
For single-family homes.
Yeah.
I mean, where I used to live in North Lee Village,
Yeah.
I think this is an area that is undervalued a lot. And if you think about it, that's the only island in Biscayne Bay that you can still afford to buy a home. The only island, North Lee Village.
Yeah.
All the rest of the islands, like you talk about 2, 3 times, 4 times more. But prices went up a lot. But I think until now it's still undervalued. And it has one gated community. I'm not sure if you were familiar with that market. It's called North Bay Island. One gated community there, single family homes. I think it's undervalued.
Interesting. Well, there's one for you. I'm going to give you a few more. I think that High Pines is undervalued. I think that right now for land costs, we're doing a deal right now. I think that market's going to explode because the whole of the Sunset Mall area is being completely redeveloped, and it's going to be much like Coconut Grove. So I see a massive injection of people wanting to go out to eat, to the movies, just like they did in the Grove. I see that market having a lot more traction and really bouncing up. And again, if you're in High Pines, you can actually walk to the village of South Miami. And I see once that mall's developed, that's going to skyrocket those values. I think the Coco Plum as a gated community is actually quite undervalued. I think there's actually a lot of building. I think a lot of people have now cottoned onto that. But I think if you can think, Coco Plum may be the only gated community in Miami that has tennis. It has a swimming pool, communal swimming pool. It has basketball courts, and it has a gym. So it has a sense of community. There's no other community that I know of in Miami that has that kind of country club vibe. I think anybody who's on a point lot or anything that's directly on the water is sitting on price gold because the migration from New York and California is significant, and people want that. And I think that good dry lot homes that have a good size to them will continue to move. I think Ponce Davis is going to continue to move. I just did a deal now, and actually with a client in January this year, and they bought for 7 and they were just offered 8 for their house. They haven't done anything to it.
Nothing.
Because zero. Absolute zero. So I see a lot of uptick there because I see the ceilings of these markets have the potential to go high. And this leads me to maybe my final point, the identification of true luxury. You build true luxury. I see a lot of people trying to build luxury, and it's faux luxury. They're not really luxury builders. They're just dressing themselves up that it's luxury, but it's not. When I see a true luxury project like yours, and I think for those people who are building out there, don't be afraid to commit to true luxury, because I have experienced the very top of the food chain coming in to buy in Miami from California, from New York, and their definition of true luxury is not the same definition as what we've traditionally seen. Their expectations are very, very high, and they're willing to pay for it. And I believe that that will continue, and that our luxury market will rise to meet this challenge as we have more builders like yourself actually going out there and building this product that they want. They're not afraid to pay for it. We know that neighborhoods in California, like the Palisades and Malibu and other parts of LA, have many 30, 40, 50, 60 plus $1 million homes. We have a good number. I don't know if we have as many as they do, but I can absolutely feel that we have the appetite. We have 2 major neighborhoods right now that are most luxurious neighborhoods in Miami, in the country, two most luxurious neighborhoods in the US. We have Fisher Island as the most expensive zip code, and we have Gables Estates usurping Beverly Hills as the most expensive neighborhood. And I don't think that's going to stop. I think that's just going to continue. And I think as long as we have builders like Builcore and designers like Design Solutions and stellar architects that we work with, that we will continue to improve our markets. And I look forward to it. And I look forward to selling it. So, Dany, thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I hope that those who have watched this podcast, who are thinking about building, will pick up the phone. And very importantly, you'll read this article that goes with this podcast, because I think that the information that we've held within is a blueprint to help you build the best possible luxury custom home that not only will be what you want, but it will also be highly profitable. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this podcast, and stay tuned for another Better Decisions podcast coming soon.